Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Today is the 26th of April, 2022. Please make sure to like my official YouTube video and all the other ones, as well as subscribe to my official YouTube channel and go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. So, I have gone over quite a few different details, such as on my journal blog, the Ornery PSA, and they're in those varying details across the board in different topics and situations that in the more current time frame of 2022, or for those who've ever actually studied biblical and Torah scriptures, a more modernized viewpoint when you take into consideration the books that I personally authored and compiled the information together, whether in reference to my fact-based books, of course, in conjunction as to the hypotheticals regarding maybe you can take in consideration as a possibility, those fiction-based books being more of a prophetic aspect. So you have the Old Testament, which you can take into consideration of all the fact-based books, and the New Testament being in reference to those particulars in regards of the fiction-based book series. Hypothetically, that could be taken into consideration, though it depends on how open-minded you actually could be. So, I'm going to go in the direction of my scuba diving. So I have earned 26 scuba diving certifications in total that I worked on by myself. Granted, I had some, scuba dive instructors, but they didn't actually do anything regarding my personal scuba diving. That's why it's called a self-contained, meaning myself contained my own underwater breathing apparatus. In comparison to any of those scuba dive instructors, they didn't do any of that. They didn't have any part of, especially when you take in consideration my childhood and my teenage years, as well as my biological adult years. And so while some people might think that that's something they had a part of, they didn't. In all truth, especially in reference to those civilian recreational scuba diver types. See, there is that factor of which it's so important to remember the difference between civilian recreational scuba diver types and my scuba diving. So those particular factors in reference to those differences between my scuba diving, my background growing up, just the Atlantic area of the ocean, well before ever learning how to swim in a pool, which is backwards, but it is as it is. And so those particular additional situations in reference to lakes after, what would a civilian recreational scuba diver ever actually teach me about my own work? I did inform these people about how I grew up going to the Atlantic area of the ocean in reference to my childhood and my teenage years. And while they thought I was joking, I reminded them, and maybe I've said it before in, the capacity of my official YouTube videos, that, there's truth behind every joke. And so while they thought I was joking in reference to going and swimming out to the buoys and swimming along the jetties and those particular factors, well, there's truth behind every joke and to my accuracy level. So I'm going to go into that before I continue a little bit more regarding my scuba diving. So whatever standards I've been held to over the years, especially in regards of my scuba diving and my writings, all of them, whether in reference to on social media platforms and or my books, those exact same standards that those people I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, that held me to whatever standards, must accept that they themselves have to hold themselves to the exact same level of accountability, because that's only the way it goes in reference to the technological advances. So each and every time anybody ever used a text message, a cell phone, or a landline phone call, emails, social media, messages, and those references online, those exact same standards that they have held me to in that hypothetical must be accepted for themselves. So in regards of my work, whether in reference to my books and or my finances and or my Medal of Honor art project artwork and or my website, www.susanmeadling.com, and or my scuba diving and or etc., such as my official YouTube channel videos, each and every individual aspect that any hypothetical, because that's freedom within the constitutional rights, within the 10 Commandments. So there is in the biblical standards, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. That is literally a golden rule. So in that karmic review, karma stands for do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, to the exact same standards. So in turn, to the exact same standards. And since I've already clarified and verified in regards of my updates since the year of 2019 in reference to my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmeadling.com, the proof as to the examples, such as the list of individuals who had been anywhere near my technological devices, whether cell phones or laptops or desktops or what have you, the different situations in regards of Geek Squad and Best Buy, all of those situations, including in reference to before how my son and I wound up in Washington State after what occurred in reference to my daughter, those having been clarified and verified would be capable to accept the facts in those references, in addition to what I brought up in regards of my bank accounts and that San Antonio police report filing. In conjunction to my original blue ID card of and for the Armed Forces of the United States of America, which I'll touch on that real quick. So my ex-sister-in-law, albeit it's not illegal, it is though the facts that my dead ex-husband, who we were at our second and final separation when he had signed the paperwork in January of 2007 to go back into the Army, in comparison to what IRR, or Individual Ready Reserve, actually stands for, he already was living outside of my house, and in a similar fashion in regards to how I had done things when I had my apartment, as well as my house. I took care of those standards back in those particular references of the first separation, which I've gone over that USAA Boulevard aspect of the apartment complex. However, in reference to this hypothetical that my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina, maiden name Nichols, legal married last name, the last time I saw her that I know of, in the year of 2009, Osteen, whose husband at the time in the year of 2001 had graduated at Lackland Air Force Base. And my blue ID card, my original one that I had brought forward, those who might be upset, rightfully so, such as myself, to the attacks that occurred on the 11th of September 2001, if there is the proof that on a military installation, most specifically the Army branch, As far as my blue identification card of and for the Armed Forces of the United States of America, having been scanned at one in the location of Georgia, which is where my ex-sister-in-law lives with her husband, last I knew in the year of 2009. If it just so happened to be that they went and had that ID card scanned at an Army branch, hypothetically, would that be considered as a red flag in reference to the attacks on September 11th in 2001 in regards to most specifically the Pentagon Army side of? If there is that hypothetical in reference to the times that my military ID for my blue identification card of and for the Armed Forces of the United States of America was scanned at an Army base in the state of Georgia, where my ex-sister-in-law with her two daughters, Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen, as to their biological mother, Mary Evangelina, maiden name Nichols, legal married name Osteen, had scanned that blue identification card at an Army installation in the state of Georgia. Hypothetically, how many days after would it be in regards to the birth of my son? Whether in reference to which my birthing process regarding the labor and delivery was actually longer than 9 days. However, what would be the day that David Osteen had graduated basic training in the year of 2001, and or if not the day specifically regarding 11 and or 9 and or not in reference not just to September but specifically to the month number 9 or 11, and or with the conjunction of the spiritual combination of 11 or 2 plus 9er, which would be 2, plus 2, which would be 4, plus 1, which would be 5. If there is that numerical combination, for those who understand coding, in reference to my ex-brother-in-law married to my ex-sister-in-law, David Osteen, having graduated at Lackland Air Force Base in the year of 2001, therein is a situation of which the artificial intelligence regarding coding and programming could be taken into consideration as to where the starting point would be considered as in the hypothetical conjunction to my biological mother, biological father, and or biological sister in any additional capacity thereof. So, if in regards of two particular locations, which if you know what the scuba diving flag looks as, even though it would be considered a smaller size, there is the hypotheticals in those particular reference points additionally to that life insurance policy, which would be considered, as anybody who knows anything about insurance fraud in those references regarding those particular individuals. And what those legalities would be considered as would be capable for any lawyer firm or attorney firm that would be capable to look into that, such as those particular factors in conjunction to my bank and all that sort of stuff that I've already brought forward. So, in reference to my scuba diving, where it was known that I had landed at the bottom of the ocean, in most specific reference to the Vandenberg, and that situation. If my niece at the time of my other ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, at that time with the legal name Susan, yes, there is the irony, had anything to do with, such as in reference to my U-Haul situation, which I brought forward as to my original FetLife account, as to that thankful situation in regards of where the picture albums and my scuba diving logbook had been taken to in those references in the year of 2012. If there was any damage to my BCD that would have been capable to find, well then there's those technological messages to take in consideration additionally. Now, on top of that, in reference to how I had dealt with my 2 ex-sisters-in-law and their eldest brother, Tony Walker Nichols, out in the Oklahoma area, who I had already written about in my first book, Finding a Silver Lining. Again, you can go to my website, www.susanbling.com, to click on the books link in that particular reference to go through Amazon to be capable to purchase through Amazon the books that I authored and compiled together in particular only to that book as a reference point. However, in that reference as to what I had discussed in person for years from the time frame of 2009 all the way through before I authored and compiled my books, in those references, again, go to my website, www.susanbling.com, as to any nefarious aspects in any capacity of. There are those particular references to take into consideration because of the facts that would be capable to be found. And there's just certain statutes of limitations that just don't end. So, then there is the hypothetical as to if in a similarity as to an oddity. When I was in Washington State, whether it was the year of 2013 or 2014, when I went out to that Puppy Town area as far as the PADI and SSI Scuba Divers School, where those particular individuals and I had spoken because of their military connection regarding scuba divers and assisting in those references, had called to International Scuba asking in reference to my cavern scuba diving certification card to take that in the similar hypothetical, because if I actually did see the guy that I had been dating at the time of when I went to the Vandenberg in August of 2009, which, my apologies, Florida, when I hand wrote those letters out to those areas as well as a few other reference points, I had remembered the time frame my son and my daughter needed to be in school, and I was dealing with quite a few different situations as a culmination of. However, the reality is, through my timeshare that I had booked the week out in Boca, I believe the fee was $144 plus taxes, somewhere around there, for the week, for the clarifications of. There is those particular references to additionally keep in mind that if the irony of irony regarding Duke's Bar and Grill in Tacoma, shortly after having gone out to the Puppy Town area, it's P as in Papa, U as in uniform, Y as in Yankee, A as in Alpha, L as in Lima, L as in Lima, U as in uniform, P as in Papa, Washington, as far as the spelling, but I call it Puppy Town because everybody likes puppy dogs. And if you don't like puppy dogs, what's wrong with you? I'm sure there's some references that can be taken into consideration. So, when taking that additional factor to the hypothetical of the year of 2014, if I remember correctly, in regards of Duke Seafood Bar and Grill, then in reference to the hypothetical, because of the situations during the time frame of August and July and June of 2009, in regards of that particular situation, if in August of 2009 he just so happened to be at International Scuba and or was told by somebody at International Scuba or from International Scuba about my scuba diving where I had landed at the bottom of the ocean regarding the Vandenberg. All by myself, because it was by work that I had to take care of on my own. And you know, in reference to December of 2020 as well as into 2021 in the winter months, most specifically, as well as January and February 2022, those particular little bouts of swimming, while those who don't scuba dive at all, and or those who don't have the actualities to my style of scuba diving, wouldn't have the intellectual capability to think clearly for themselves, and hypothetically in those particular references wouldn't realize in regards to the depth level that I had gone to in regards of my scuba diving at the Vandenberg area when I landed at the bottom of the ocean. You know, not when I say I landed at the bottom of the ocean, I don't mean at the bottom of where the keel of the Vandenberg is. I am boat scuba diver specialty certified. So no, when I say the bottom of the ocean, I mean the actual bottom of the ocean. So I wrote about this in The Adventures of Susan Mealing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, that 3-volume book series. So when I say that, or typed in those references to that book series, but having discussed previously that I knew I landed at the bottom of the ocean, I was speaking the truth because that's all I can do. So, in those references, when I had brought that forward, while I understand it does break the laws of physics, however, there's also kinetic laws, velocity laws, and, well, there's a few different scientific laws. However, I already explained in reference to one particular tattoo how I'm a bit of a scientific anomaly. So, since I've already accepted that long ago in regards of well before my first publishing of my first books, again, go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. I've already brought that up. I accepted that back in the year of 2008 and 2009. That's when I literally, in reference to that particular tattoo, had officially accepted the fact that I realize I'm a scientific anomaly simply because of the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 in regards of the coma that I was in, as well as the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain that took 8.5 years to fully dissipate. Those particular two aspects literally have to do with being a scientific anomaly. It's common sense. You don't have to have a biology PhD or even master's degree to figure that out. Thank you. So while yes, I did go from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to 2nd grade math, and yes, there were times I had difficulties actually speaking because of dealing with headaches and migraines, I did not lose the capability to type. That's something I did not ever lose. Sure, I needed to be retaught the names of colors, and sure, I needed to be retaught how to count to 10. I did not lose the capacity of learning or I should say, being taught to retype. No, that was something I did not forget. I remember that. Hypothetically, that's a muscle memory situation as a hypothetical. So when you take that in consideration as far as hypothetical wishful thinking in regards of my biological mother and or biological father and or biological sister, let's do some math in this particular lecture. There is a difference between arithmetic and math. Arithmetic would be college algebra with trigonometry and calculus with the conjunction of college level in an actual college geometry. That is actual arithmetic in comparison to the overall translation of math. So, if I had to be retaught the names of colors, and I had to be retaught how to count to the number 10 as per proof, what would the translation in reference to math be, or common sense, if I could type without having to be retaught? Would there, hypothetically, as to not having to be retaught how to type and use the internet regarding a keyboard, what would that translate to in regards of prudential information technology software engineering and all of those factors connected to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment as far as my invitation to attend the school? I believe that would be common sense. And so in the time frame of 2018 to 2019, you know, after my Medal of Honor art project trip in reference to Iowa, I had to get myself squared away, and thankfully my landlords at the time were assistive in as best as possible. And so in regards of getting those documents and stuff like that, those Rubbermaid bins and all that sort of stuff, I believe I had a black and white notebook which had to do with my arithmetic book regarding the fact at Asher Holmes Elementary School, where each year from the time frame of first grade, we either opened the plastic wrapping in reference to our textbooks for elementary school, or the teacher did it and then handed us our book and had thrown the plastic wrapper in the trash can, depending on which book for which class in the 1980s and 1990s. So that particular black and white composition notebook would be back from the year of, at minimum, 1989, maybe 1990. That would be what my intellectual level was before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during basic training, where I had that subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain that took 8.5 years to dissipate from the MRI and CAT scan view, because there was that factor. So while I didn't have to be retaught how to type, because I knew how to type, there are those realities. In regards to those reasons, 10 commandments are important. And so in those particular references of the proof as to the clarifications and verifications, in those references to my typing, after I woke up from my coma, what would that math be, or common sense, in reference to my scuba diving, regarding my swimming when I was a child and a young teenager translate to? I do believe the common sense factor is I could only tell the truth. So while other individuals may have to deal with that fact of those particular references of what their choices were, well, that's their karma to deal with, not mine. That's their karma. Or their golden rule in reference to do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. And so as best as I have been capable to stay out of needless drama, there has been certain situation in that hypothetical that I've had to go and clarify in regards of my journal blog, the ordinary PSA, on my website, www.susanbling.com. And now with the additional factor of in the year 2020, where President of the United States of America 45, Donald J. Trump, and Vice President of the United States of America 47, Mike Pence, and their particular administrations having officially, for whatever length of time, in regards of the formation of the U.S. Space Force, as long as NASA has already been around, and as many decades as Space Camp has been a thing for children and teenagers, as well as the conjunctive aspects of however long certain airplane companies have been working on that, in conjunction to the fact that there are satellites that have been orbiting the Earth, and you must remember that landing on the moon and those particular additional situations, in conjunction to the formation of Blue Origin Company, as well, of course, as E equals MC squared, as I nicknamed him. I nicknamed him that. I gave him that nickname just for clarifications I mean, maybe somebody else may have called him that, but I am the one who came up with that. So in reference to Elon Musk. I'm in the process of listening to a YouTube thingamabob in regards of, I think it's called a TED Talk, which is, you know, and so, but he's speaking with E equals MC squared, as far as that's concerned. And it just so happens to be in the year of 2022 that apparently was as far as that's concerned. So hi. I figured I could make fun of certain things in a subtle way, but not really making fun of things. Just, I noticed, I paid attention. I can acknowledge that in comparison to how some people don't realize that particular factor, because I believe in giving credit where credit's due. I don't believe in living vicariously through somebody else. I've had a problem with that since I was a child regarding how my biological mother had been, because, you know, I didn't want to get him to dance. That wasn't my thing, and I did not really want to do ballet at all. The only thing I actually liked about ballet was my recital costume, and that was it. Not the actual classes, not the actual recital itself, just the costume for my outfit. That was the only thing I liked, because it had this huge tutu and it was poofy, and now it's kind of useless because I can't spin around without getting dizzy. However, as a child, when in the reference of that, I spun around and around and around and around, and I had a field day because I could see how big my tutu got. And so, and I had already made that whirlpool in my babysitter's backyard as far as her pool that was above ground. It's funny, it's a dark brown with a light tan. If I'm accurate in regards of that particular pool, it's also like an octagon-ish shape, and it has these wooden stairs and a deck with this lattice type of fencing, if I remember correctly, regarding Sunny Sonia and Joe Jose Castro. Just in case. Maybe I forgot, but I'm fairly certain that's the truth. And so, if I had actually been asked questions that I would have actually been capable to answer, this is probably a situation that my neurologist, neuropsychologist, as well as medical hold unit, including CID, probably had a bit of a problem, because I was speaking the truth, and then whatever they were hypothetically being told in reference to by my biological mother and or biological father and or biological sister, because those who knew me in medical hold unit would know about all the various stuff I talked about back then. And so I have this big thing about telling the truth because I grew up with my biological father. Learning from that. I also grew up with my grandpa Gabbett. And those who know how certain individuals are in that particular reference. Don't let the fact that he was on oxygen fool you. He didn't have to move anywhere except for one arm when you really take in consideration certain things, you know. And he, you know, he was capable to sit in one spot. He didn't need to carry around that particular oxygen tank. And so, you know, whatever strength of that you can take in consideration for those guys who would know in particular as to those references. You know, I can't be the only one who's ever dealt with that. And then there's Joe Jose. And Sunny Sonia and her friend Nora. Yeah, so as some examples, and then it was the 1980s and the 1990s, so, you know, then there's Grandmama and Grandpapa, although thankfully I didn't have to deal with that. The irony of ironies, at Grandmama and Grandpapa's, as well as at my bakong and my bakpoos. Those are only locations. I never have to worry about that. I also do, to tell the truth though, that was a big deal. Although, for those who, especially more so regarding my grandmama and my grandpapa, you know about grandmama. You know, all you needed to know was how to duck sometimes, and or how to not fall regarding that plastic furniture cover regarding the couch. Because you know you took your shoes off in Grandmama and Grandpapa's place. Because you know, and so I had made the joke that my grandmama had come up with that just in case. And anybody who, you know, I know there's like my cousin Jade and stuff, but anybody who remembers how Grandmama had been at times, and same thing with Grandpapa, because they wore shoes in their house, but everybody else had to take off their shoes, unless it was picture time. And so everybody was wearing their socks. I had made the joke back then, I think Grandmama doing that on purpose. And a bunch of guys that had hung out at my Grandmama and Grandpapa's house, they were like, Shawty, why would you say that? Because when Grandmama gets mad, she throws things. And if she grabs the fly swatter off of the wall that has the, I can't remember what shape it was, but then there was it, or if she grabs the Board of Education, because she called it that, I apologize, she called it the Board of Edumacation, which those who understand not, and so, you know, those socks, when you went to get out of the way, it's, and then because of the hairstyle back then, in regards of certain people and what they utilized in their hair, and then they'd sit on the couch with the plastic cover. Screw you guys, by the way. You guys were mean because you didn't wipe it up. It dripped down, the plastic whatever, and then pooled in because of the way she had the plastic covers. And so yeah, no. Yeah, that's a slip and slide in a whole different capacity. The difference is that was inside in comparison to outside. So at the minimum of outside, you could do a slip and slide. I had a friend back in gymnastics, and she had invited me over, and I'm like, I don't really want to do the slip and slide. And she's like, why not? And it's like, I got some bad memories. How do you stop as far as that slip and slide is concerned? Because at Grandmama and Grandpapa's, it's called the wall. It's not gravity, it's the wall. For those who know, you know what I mean. And, because depending which way you went, one way was, sure, it was drywall, sure. Whatever construction material of behind there, I thought that there was a brick wall behind the actual drywall as far as at Grandmama and Grandpapa's place, but didn't ever find out. Although, you know, somebody may have, I don't know. Then the other way, as far as the very different version of a slip and slide, was into the kitchen. Which then there was the slick linoleum floor or tile floor that was textured, and then again another wall, which you just gradually got more speed in comparison. It was literally like a cartoon, one way or another, because you slip one way, you go up in the air, and you into the wall. Second way, you go and slip that way, then you're like, whoa, 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 because you got your socks on. And then there's the wall, which was usually right next to the door, which actually kind of worked out a little bit better. For those who know, because then it was a quick little and you were out the door to the backyard. If you can call it that, it's called concrete. There are different, there's that understand, because you didn't ever want to run out the front door because that was the street. I mean, technically, I should clarify, there was the front porch, then there were the stairs made of stone, then the sidewalk, and then possibly a car, but still the street. So usually if you had to do the slip and slide, you wanted to go, because it was safer to go towards the backyard despite it being concrete. Because at the very minimum, for those who know what I'm talking about, you got the patio-ish area. Compared to the porch, it was a patio, for those who know, and then whatever stairs, and then the concrete pad in the back with the like little strip of grass here and there that she just put a whole bunch of potted planters out there in comparison as far as her gardening was concerned. For those who know where I'm talking about as far as Grandmama and Grandpapa's house in Harlem. So, you know, that Board of Education, as soon as if she didn't reach for that fly swatter, you knew. You knew to get to ducking. And, you know, and you better be light on your feet because you know. I'm just saying for those who have that knowledge and memories. Hi, Jade. Hi, Jade's cousins, or my second cousins, I guess. I think that's how it is. Because, yeah, so, you know. Hi. And family members, because, you know, the 5 boroughs, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, throughout Pennsylvania, and then, of course, New Jersey. Because there were plenty in New Jersey, as well as, what was it, Maryland, if I remember correctly. There were a couple who lived in Maryland that came up to New York City. Hi! Of all sorts of, because I know that Jade's dad has other brothers and sisters, so I don't know what that, is that the 3rd cousins? I don't know. There's so many different aspects of the familial portion, so, but hi. I growed up. Compared to, you know, way back when, as far as those 1980s stirrup pants, although they were better than jeans, except for when you went to Harlem, or Brooklyn, or the Bronx, or Queens, or Chinatown in Manhattan, or Little Italy in Manhattan. But it was better than, you know, having to wear a dress. So, you know, whatever, because I really wasn't into that. I was that one, for those who remember. The one that would complain, you know, that, so usually I had either a ponytail or pigtails. As far as those who remember Grandmama, I was the one that complained about having to wear a dress and would fight. And it was like, no, I don't want to wear a dress, no! And stuff like that. Yeah, that was me. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I know. Irony, but you know what? This is my way in comparison to back then. Because I don't like those stupid dresses back then. That pale background with the little pastel flowers, white stockings, little white patent leather shoes in New York City. Yeah, okay. No. Common sense would have been black shoes. No. My biological mother, I don't want to. I, on the other hand, was not like my biological sister, even though when we were younger, we kind of actually looked whatever, until something happened one year and my eyes got round. Because all throughout my childhood, as far as like different school pictures and stuff like that, you know, I dealt with some stuff over the years. And so I had made the joke to my biological mother. I was looking through the pictures and I'm like, okay, I look slanted-eyed because, you know, Asian-y and stuff, you know, or almond shape or whatever the PC word is, whatever. And looking, and then one year, all of a sudden, my eyes went from, you know, Asian-y-ish. I mean, I have the eyelid area. And then all of a sudden, my eyes are round, and it's like, what happened that year? And my biological mother and biological father were like, well, you know, you went out to the backyard, and then, you know, the next day was picture day. So you know what? I figured it out. I guess I dealt with some stuff, and it was a little bit much. I can make the joke and just be like, all right, yeah, hi, I'm alive. This is great. Sure, whatever. And so I can make fun of that because, you know, what else do you do at that point? But anyway, so, you know, they did that as far as 45 and 47 regarding their administration for however many administrations of getting that stuff taken care of. You know, after Irving in the year 2011 and Indiana in the year 1999, you know, for those examples of those references, which is obviously before and after the year 2004, you know, in my backyard in San Antonio compared to, you know what, I just realized that. There is that common thread between the backyard in the house that I grew up in New Jersey compared to in San Antonio in that oak leaf situation. Yeah, well, that's an irony. That is an irony, because yeah, that is. And then there is the irony in regards of my backyard in Carrollton, as far as that's concerned, because there was a few situations that occurred there as well. I actually had a fairy ring that developed in the backyard, an actual fairy ring. For those who know what a fairy ring is, I don't mean a ring of jewelry with a fairy design. No, I mean an actual ring of mushrooms that were under, and those specific types of mushrooms underneath the trampoline. And it's like, where you, and this was early. This was in, I think it was December of 2008. And it's like, what is going on? What is happening here? Excuse you. No, you little whatevers. Don't piss off the fairies. I'm just saying. So then there's that particular irony of ironies. So yeah, getting back to the reference of, you know, then you have the irony regarding Excalibur in the year of 2005, which is obviously after the year 2004, and that particular situation and that reference of a few things. And so yeah, it was as it was. I stood my ground. And so, you know, technically, I guess, you know, because whatever. Anyway, so in reference to the hypothetical that, you know, my ex-sister-in-law and or her two daughters, in reference to Mary Evangelina Nichols' maiden last name, Osteen, and, you know, since she had married a guy in the Air Force, as far as, you know, that blue identification card situation, because of course, if she had informed him at that time in the year of 2009, I believe the terminology would be complicit, if I'm accurate. So in reference to where it would have made common sense for me to speak with either the Coast Guard or the Marine Corps or the Navy in those references, if the Air Force, which anybody who's been in the Army knows how that goes, as far as that, which I wasn't their family, we weren't, especially in regards to Georgia and those people, we weren't ever in that capacity. No matter what those people might have wished, in comparison. So if they had done the equivalent of what an Army captain had done at the Navy Marine Special Warfare at Fort Sam Houston, how he would call and say that he was a captain, knowing in regards of specifically calling a Navy, a Marine, and or a Coast Guard base, if they had done that, wishing that would be considered acceptable, whether in regards of whatever ex-in-law of mine or not, it don't matter. There was not one reason, nor cause, nor excuse for those people to get involved. I don't care in reference to the emergency contact, because there wasn't an emergency from me. I would be capable to make that decision on my own, and since I was capable to take care of as best as possible, because now, since you have the reference point of December-ish of 2019, to more specifically of March 2020 as to the COVID situation, if there have been those in the hypothetical that thought that I was whatever as far as, you remember in those references of 2009, most specifically through 2012, if you have any assistance more than what I personally had regarding all that work, just accept the fact that I had been capable from the start. And that you people in that hypothetical decided that you thought you knew better, but the reality of what your actual intentions were. So in that hypothetical, in reference to each and every individual that obviously was capable to see in regards of Cafe Mom and or Facebook and or Model Mayhem and or FetLife regarding whatever in those particular references, you need to just accept the facts that I had worked much more diligently, being a mom, as to taking care of my son and my daughter as best as I could, while taking care of myself, while maintaining and sustaining as best as I could. And so unless in the reference of from the time frame, because it's only a 3-year point in time, when you really take that in consideration of 2009 through 2012. So from, if you want to do December 2019 through essentially what would be this year of 2022, it's technically, you know, if you've had any assistance in comparison regarding you have to have 2 children, taking care of all that sort of stuff, if you yourself from, and I'll give this reference of August 2009 through to December of 2012, okay, to the regards of March, if you want to do that way, of 2020 in the official capacities, through whatever that 2 years and however many months, from March of 2020 through, if you at this point of the 26th of April 2022 have had less difficulties as far as taking care of situations, you just need to concede that I was always capable, and it would have been better if I actually had genuine assistance in regards of my son, my daughter, and I as to what we were dealing with in comparison. Because let's give an example in this particular lecture. Remember, go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. Check out my journal blog, subscribe to this official YouTube channel, and like this official YouTube video of mine. And if you're going to leave a comment, please do make sure to have etiquette and respect. So in August of 2009, there was nobody who lived within a minimum of 1 hour of me that was a biological family member of mine specifically. They lived, the closest biological family member that I had that lived near was in San Marcos and San Antonio, Texas. That's the closest compared to Carrollton, Texas. In reference to my son and my daughter's biological father's side, the closest when we were living in Carrollton, Texas, was in Fort Worth, Texas, and White Settlement, Texas. At that time of August 2009. If you have had assistance in just that particular reference point of closer than that travel distance, accept the facts as to what choices should have been, could have been, but were as they were. And that includes how I had to move and all that sort of stuff because of what occurred in reference to my daughter, which was not my fault. That had to do with the Fort Worth Zoo due to McCoy Elementary School and Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District, as well as whatever hypotheticals regarding my scuba diving. So those people have had to accept the reality as to those facts. I could have actually discussed that back then. That was the choices of whichever individuals per their own choices in comparison to myself. My choices had to do with making sure as best as I possibly could for my daughter, my son, and I, so that way I could be the best mom that I could be while taking care of stuff. Because I figured at the very minimum, after the turn of the year from 2009 into 2010, if there were those who were associated with whichever branch, specifically of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, knowing the facts of my blue identification card, that I would have officially been informed in comparison to the needless hinting in that hypothetical, because common sense would dictate you know the facts. So being truthful is common sense. 10 Commandments. So if there was any hinting such as, well, you know, and they knew in this hypothetical, well, you know, I'm in whichever branch of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Well, thank you for your service. And if it was brought up in discussion, which I know it had, regarding my scuba diving, and you knew someone, guess what common sense would have dictated? You would have said something in regards of common sense. So instead of whatever needless games, of whatever needless drama, keep that in mind as far as standards are concerned, but for yourselves that you have brought to yourselves in comparison. Because I don't do that. I'm quite blunt and to the point. I don't like wasting time. And that would be, in my opinion, as to the review now on the 26th of April 2022, a large amount of wasted time. Especially in regards to when you take in consideration Irving in 2011. So when you add in other references as to other people in whatever areas, as far as whatever was supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle, in comparison to whatever hypotheticals thereof, because of the amount of events that I had been known to attend. So in those particular references, in conjunction to my modeling, if you decided, knowing after having been informed that I am not that knowledgeable of pop culture, and you decided on your own to do something knowing that that would not be consensual to me at all, because there's no consent if I'm not officially informed, and the knowledge thereof to how I did not and do not know pop culture, as to your own responsibility that you need to take in consideration because of those references. That would not be considered consenting at all, whatsoever, on my part. So there's a reference to an event that I had been told about where I was asked to hold a sign because I was at an event called Disturbathon. And this individual had decided to ask me to hold it because he said it had to do with the mascot. And it was something that I hadn't heard of. I hadn't ever heard of Disturbathon before. I had never been to an event like that before. And so to that particular clarification, when that wasn't explained beyond what I was officially informed of, if that was not within the 10 Commandments, as far as the additional knowledge in that year of 2009 or 2010, as to those facts, that's why you can only have consent in the consideration of when there's actual information to consent to. So what I was informed was it was the mascot reference to that particular event. That was all I was informed in comparison to whatever hypotheticals in the difference thereof. So keep that in mind for those clarifications. So there obviously, if there was any other reference that I would not officially know, because I have been made fun of for years before that point. Not in the number 4 as in 4, F-O-R, years, decades by that point. In kindergarten, I was made fun of for not knowing pop culture references. So for that clarification, aside from the fact as to after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain, and my headaches, migraines, memory deficits, and cognitive disorders, in conjunction to having gone from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to 2nd grade math, as well as that being after my scuba diving in regards of having earned my 26 scuba diving certifications, as well as the areas that I landed at the floor and or the bottom of the oceanic waters. You need to take responsibility for your choices and your actions in those references, because obviously I'm a smidgen protective of my son and my daughter as best to the capabilities that I possibly could in every reference thereof, with the clarifications and verifications, not just in reference to my fact books, but also in regards of the books that I authored and published, in regards of having worked on updates at the same time in the year of 2019 regarding the adventures of Susan Mealing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, as well as the modern day book. Again, you can go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. So that would officially be non-consensual in regards of any aspect that I was not officially informed of, especially because of how I had spoken as well as written the truth. That would not be consent if there was something of a different reference point. Now, would it? In that hypothetical as to the conjunctive aspects after that Temple of Flesh event regarding the uniform fetish ball, where without my consent and the acknowledgement that I had not consented at all, which that would translate to because I did not consent, additionally to the fact it was known that I would not consent, and how it was joked about how I would not consent, after as well as before that occurred, it does not change the facts that when there is not consent, there is no consent. That is common sense. Obviously. So that in turn would translate to what legal definition? I'm sure that there's an attorney or lawyer somewhere that would be capable to clarify that by different sections and subsections thereof. So, I've already clarified the individuals that I had allowed by what standards as to any other aspect of individuals that my son and or my daughter were introduced to without my permission and without my consent. That is something my son and my daughter know as to those factors to keep in mind. So, if as to the hypotheticals in those references as to my ex-in-laws who did not have my permission to contact the scuba diving school that I was attending, just as my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister did not have my permission to contact the school I was going to in reference to my scuba diving. Legally, I believe that's a privacy violation, if I am correct. Additionally, in regards of that social media stuff where people seem to think that just because you might see someone on the friends list of someone, how about this common sense factor? You tell the truth as to where you think you recognize them from, in comparison to the equivalent of name dropping, because anybody who was at whatever events those were, I know there were a few, but I know for a fact there is one particular event in Austin where everybody at wherever that was on the patio in the smoking section, as well as inside and around the property, when I was informed that my name was used by Celtic Cowboy when he was talking with some people out in Killeen, I pulled out my cell phone, and those who were there know exactly how that went in regards of, so you can take that in consideration as to the exact same opinion of mine when it comes to your choice to lie, because that would be considered as name dropping if going and trying to get certain factors thereof. So there was that male that I was dating at that point in time of August, because after the Cozumel situation, besides not really discussing it, if he had contacted others in whichever capacity of, that don't matter, because that is non-consensual to me. That is a huge issue, because why are you contacting my biological mother and or my biological father and or my biological sister and or anybody on my social media friends list at that time? What would be lacking in etiquette and respect, as well as many people who told me, oh, I know how people are from New Jersey. If you actually knew how people are from New Jersey, you would know that the only way that you ever introduce yourself to someone else is by telling them the truth. There were a lot of problems in the 1980s and 1990s because of some people who thought that they could name drop. There were a lot of problems between quite a few families out in the East Coast area, because instead of telling the truth and saying, don't, you know, in these references of hypothetical, don't have permission to do this. However, I know whatever. And then any of those people who could have actually told the person involved, they decided however they decided. There were a lot of problems in the 5 boroughs in the late 1980s because of that. There were even more problems in the 1990s in the tri-state area because of that. As a huge set of problems. So anybody in those hypotheticals that over the years that I have met in person, face-to-face in person, most specifically regarding 1998 in Illinois, out to the time frame most specifically of 2012, that ever told me that they knew how things were in New Jersey. If you did that, no you didn't, but you apparently wanted to find out for yourself how that was. Because up in New Jersey, you didn't do that. Not at all. If you had respect, I should clarify, because if you had respect and or etiquette, you knew that you asked to be introduced. Unless they specifically let you know that, yeah, I'll be here and whatever at this time frame and whatever, and etiquette and respect. You didn't ever just show up. You didn't ever just randomly introduce yourself as if you actually were a part of, because there were problems when it came to that. There were a lot of problems if you actually had connections regarding those areas during those years. There were a lot of situations before Enron occurred where there were certain families that had a lot of situations because a bunch of people thought it wasn't that big of a deal when it was a huge deal. A huge set of situations. It's a lot of problems because it's one thing to go and do journalism and investigate, but you let them know in truth. In comparison, because I wasn't doing any journalism or investigating. I told people from 2000 through 2012 that I was working on the after effects from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. It was not until much later that a whole bunch of people said, you know, you should write a book. Yeah, sure, I had thought about writing a spiritual book series in comparison. And again, it wasn't until 2019 that I had gone in those particular ways. And while yes, I did create the ornery PSA after the, if I remember correctly, the announcement from who became President of the United States of America 45, Donald J. Trump. After that, in 2015, because I was already working on all sorts of other stuff, and because of my personal background and my personal herstory, although it's called history, I am a biological female. So I'll call it her story because it's mine. Or, well, I can still say history. It is what it is. I'm a tomboy. Nonetheless, and then there's the Greco-Roman Latin thing in regards of how you say certain words when there's multiple genders in regards of a group of whatever. So yeah, fine, whatever. Nonetheless, in those references regarding my scuba diving, if my ex-in-laws decided to involve themselves and they didn't have any proof that I would, because realistically, again, I had explained this before I had left to go to the Georgia, Florida area, I had let everybody know I'm doing this only for my son and my daughter because the only time they've ever met those people are at funeral situations, and the only time that I ever met them was one time before in regards to when my original blue identification card of and for the Armed Forces of the United States of America went missing because of them. And so, you know, I had to get a new ID card because of that, because of those needless situations regarding those types of people. So those aspects, especially because of how certain types of people think that just because, oh, well, this means this. No, let me clarify. You know, that education has been needed for a while. As you can see in reference to like a lot of situations, there is a difference between acquaintance, in person, face-to-face in person, most importantly. Because while, yes, this is a lot of online stuff, I am quite particular. So acquaintance is an overall generalized aspect, despite the fact that I can be friendly. However, when it comes to certain situations, I have this particular mandatory aspect where if I am going to view certain things a certain way, it is exactly that, viewing things in a certain way. So yes, I can be friendly towards others. However, what I personally consider for myself, that is a difference. A massively huge difference. So I referred to E equals MC squared. And I brought up 45 and Miss Melania, as well as 47 and Miss Karen in those references. I don't know if I actually ever met them in person, face to face in person. They would know most likely, although they've met a lot of people over their lifetime, I'm sure. I don't know how many years old, but I'm sure they've met more than one person in their life. I mean, how many people are in Washington, D.C.? Probably more than one person. Hypothetically, that could be a thing. I'm fairly certain. And you know, since I use the words administration, hypothetically, that means more than one person. That's my math. So then in regards of, because, you know, I brought up Blue Origin, well, yeah, okay, Mr. Bezos has this stuff to do with Amazon. I don't know whether or not I met him. I'm sure he would know. I wouldn't know unless he, you know, realistically, unless I was actually informed, I admit it. And even then, because depending on the time frame, okay. I didn't know who had owned Amazon at the time until, I don't know what year it was. I know it was at the minimum, which is really, you know, it is what it is. I think it was like 2019. I apologize. There's a few things I was taking care of at the time for a while. You know, to be honest, I didn't even know that Eminem, his name apparently is Marshall Mathers, until around the year of 2019 or 2020. And I stood up to listen to Eminem on Fort Sam Houston in the year of 2000. Wasn't until 2019 or 2020 that I learned his name is Marshall Mathers. All I remember is, you know, there's a... I forgot about Jay. Can't forget about Jay. actually Lil Kim? I don't know. I haven't looked it up. Similar to Sean Puffy Combs. J-Lo, I'm sure her name might be something different other than J-Lo, but I don't know. Same thing with like, maybe Queen Latifah's name is actually Queen Latifah. I don't know. You know, it's on the radio. I'm rhyming, yay. Just talking about songs and artists. Again, like Pink. I don't know if her name was actually Pink. You know, not to be rude, here's the thing. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Like, I grew up going around different areas of New Jersey. I don't even have to bring up going to the 5 boroughs, but I can in reference to the 5 boroughs of New Jersey. I knew people who had the name of cars. Literally, I knew people named Mercedes. I knew people named Cougar. I knew people named Porsche or Porsche. So, you know, that's just a starting point. That's not even going to like and those who know. And that's not even nicknames, okay? Just saying. Then there's, you know, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and then the rest of Pennsylvania. Just saying. I've known a few people, and not all of them had, you know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John type of names. There was more than just Ruth, or Joseph, or irony, Mary in those regards, or Esther, stuff like that. Just saying. There's a whole bunch of names. Look at the population. And I'm talking first name. I'm not even going into the middle name. Just saying. And then, so I'm just throwing that out there. So again, I don't know if I've met E equals MC, although, you know, that's kind of funny because, you know, I call him E equals MC squared, which is an irony in those. For those who know certain areas as to an irony, no, it's okay. Sure, your name could be whatever. I'm gonna, where I was born and raised and stuff, I'm gonna call you E equals MC squared, but because I'm such a huge dork and I've always been a huge dork, I'm gonna call you E equals MC squared because I like Albert Einstein. And the irony of Tesla, have you ever met his spirit? I got to spend some time. He's an interesting one. You know, kind of similar in regards to General George Washington's spirit out behind Old Tenant Presbyterian Church. So one year, this is a whole other ball of wax, but this is an actual thing that I don't know if my biological father and or biological mother and or biological sister remember. One day, it was the evening hours, and we were driving to Old Tenant Presbyterian Church, and I don't even remember what it was for. I just remember it was the evening hours. And I just see this group of spirits, and this is before I start understanding that I can see spirits. And I'm like, I see these soldiers, but they're not in uniforms that I recognize because Pastor Mackenzie had, you know, been a chaplain in the army at the time, and he's the, you know, pastor of the church in the 1990s. I see these guys, and they're all in this, I don't know, military, Navy, I don't know. They were in something. And it was like, you better watch out. And then they just went through and I hadn't ever seen anything like that. It freaked me out. What are you doing? Oh, and they're just gonna walk right through the car. Oh, or the car goes through that. What is this? There were these guys, they And then, you know, these other, I don't know, I don't remember what month of the year it was, but I guess it'd be irony if it was close to the time of the Battle of Monmouth. I don't know. So, and then some of them that were going towards where General George Washington's office was. So, you know, I don't know if they remember that. But that's how long. So, you know, and those references, it is as it is. However, it would be funny if E equals MC squared in those particular references, you know, because he, you know, kind of like, I didn't know his name was Marshall Mathers. So, you know, if his name is Elon Musk, which is funny because, you know, E equals MC squared. So there's the E literally in the first word. If you take L as a capital and you break it, you have the equal sign. And then there's actually the M. And K sounds like C. And there's two vowels. Like squared. I am this dork. I am this dork. I am truthfully this dork. Yes, I've always been this dorky. Massively huge dork. Yeah. It is as it is. Which would be funny if he was like, I'm gonna name, you know, like, I don't know what his real name is, if that's his real name, but it'd be funny. I want to have a really cool name, and I want to do something, whatever. And it's, you know, or, you know, in regards of the K, you know, and you take it, how it sounds like a C, and you take the L letter from the K, because of how you make a K, and then you take the L and you turn it sideways. Either way, it's still, and then it's still two. If he's into geometry at all, you know, with SpaceX and whatnot. Who needs geometry regarding space travel? Maybe there's some arithmetic involved with that. Who knows? You know, I mean, how do you calibrate anything? Is there arithmetic with there? Could be. There could be some arithmetic. Possibly. I don't know. I'm not the smartest crayon in the toolbox. Though, you know, I mean, I got a little bit. I can make a joke as far as my corset right now, because anybody who ever peeled the wrapper on a crayon, see, I can make fun of myself like that on the spot easily. So, you know, it's just, you know, whatever. I can make fun of myself. Or, you know, it's like a, what is it, those remember those pencils from, that had the little doohickey mabob that some people would put the pencil in, so I could make a joke about my corset. For those who know what I'm talking about, the thing that, like, you know, for those who didn't like writing, you know, those types, instead of getting the callus right here, that would get all, you know, I need to keep my hands delicate, you know, whatever. You can make a because they came in different colors for those who know what I'm talking about. I know, it's fine. So I can make the joke, you know, this is like that part. This is how much of a dork I am. And so, but for those who actually know what I'm talking, and then here's my, you know, choose technically, like, well, which part is it? Is this the part just before the writing? Or and this being the eraser? Or is this the eraser and this is the writing point? Who knows? It depends. because I can make the joke in reference of, because those who remember which type of pencils I'm talking about, I can make the joke in the reference of the way the corset strings are. Dorky jokes. For those who know. And so yeah, I can make fun of myself easily. So easily. So yeah, I'm pretty good at it. I don't need any assistance. Making fun of myself, I know myself. I know. I have had assistance over the years. I've kind of, you know, it is as it is. And so, nonetheless, it would be funny because I wouldn't know if I met E equals MC squared. Or, you know, Mr. Davis, as far as Amazon's concerned. Or any, I wouldn't know unless they were like, by the way, hi. There is one situation. And I don't really like name dropping, but this is kind of a funny situation if this is actually, okay? So I went to this one party, okay? And there was this guy, and I had seen him a bunch of times. And so I gave him a hug and I'm like, hi! And it was Halloween. And I'm like, oh, you know, whatever, I can't remember what, I think I might have been the Absinthe Fairy. I don't know, maybe there's an irony. I think maybe that was my Halloween costume that year. Anyway, so he was like, do you know who I am for Halloween? And I was like, a guy in a business suit. And he pulled himself back from the hug and he showed me he had like this little seal right here. I don't mean a Navy SEAL poopy downy. Or a sea lion. I'm just saying, because, you know. But he had the presidential seal and stuff like that, and he's like, President George W. Bush. And I was like, does he know you took his jacket? And he's like, I think he'll be okay with it. It's like, oh. That'd be funny. Because, you know, it was Halloween though, and, you know, you really are, whatever it is. So, you know, I just kind of, Amazon him, but that would be hilarious. Because the irony, I was like, well, you know, if you are, I did vote for you in 2000 and 2004. I did. Don't let how I physically look fool you. Yes, I've been a Republican for a while. But, you know, it is as it is. For a while, you know, especially the old Republican values. Those particular references, you know, because I've studied history. Just saying. And those particular references, but it would be hilarious. I kind of want to ask E equals MC squared about his name, if that's the case. I have a few other questions for that one, but that is as it is. So hopefully it would be considered in a good way, because, you know, in that irony is space stuff, because that's an irony. And apparently, you know, there's a bit of technology involved. Last I checked. Not that I have any official standards on that. Where, you know, well, I can't even say that. I've taken pictures and videos for years. And, you know, okay, fine. I didn't report anything in regards of during the time frames of the 1980s and 1990s. I made attempts to, though. I just got made fun of. You know, because I couldn't watch anything above G-rated at the time. And so, you know, where adults biologically were like, oh, What are you watching that would make you think that? Does Tinkerbell count? What about Beauty and the Beast at that point in time? Maybe, you know? And so before, years before, you know, in regards of The Little Mermaid, yeah, no, like there's stuff out in the ocean and stuff, and, you know, no, that's not really that's not what I really consider a mer person, but okay, sure, that's I guess, a reference to whatever it is, it is. I mean, there's different types of mer people, and, you know, whatever, as far as that is as it is. They don't all look like that. I'm just gonna let you know. Yeah, but then again, you know, I got told that, you know, because I think back in 1996, I made attempts to explain to people at MAST, or Marine and Science Technology School. And I wrote about this in regards of the adventures of Susan Newling's scuba diver extraordinaire. I was like, yeah, no, there's this fish. It is so cute. It's got these teepees, these little teepees. It's so cute. It's huge. It's huge. It's got this, you know, it's like this huge. It's a little teepee smile. It's got a little cheeky light. And it's so cute. Later, when scuba diving, not when actually scuba diving, but during a scuba dive trip in Cozumel, the guy that I had explained this to, he was like, you think the anglerfish is cute? And I'm like, yes, that's so cute. It's a little teepee, it's a little tiki, it's a little face, it's so cute. He's like, that's a face only a mother could love. And then, so later we dated. I don't know what his particular record of as far as how many females he's been involved with before then or since. That is as it is, I don't know. That is as it is, he would know his own numbers in that particular reference. And so, you know, that's just how, whatever, and that's just, you know, I wouldn't know at all. And so we didn't discuss that. And so, it would be an irony though. It would be extremely ironic. It would be a huge irony if before and since then, just, you know, however, that could be taken into consideration. It is whatever that would be, as far as that's concerned. It would be funny though. It is what it is. So anyway, as far as that's concerned, you know, whatever. I don't know. So I in that reference of Dukes, after having gone to Puppy Town and that whole thing, and if it's a similar aspect regarding how that had been in regards of 2009 after my scuba diving, you know, it's just kind of common sense. There's one person to ask. That'd be me. Yeah, so if all, so I mean, I already acknowledged, okay, fine, I'm a scientific anomaly. I haven't denied that. That doesn't translate to certain other things, no matter how many some people might think it does. You know, how certain types are, you know, in regards of the scientific communities. Yeah, no, that doesn't translate to that. I'm still a human being. Just pointing that out there. Just because, you know, last I checked, those physics laws and so on and so forth, those aren't actual legal laws last I checked, that's not in the Constitution of the United States of America. Also possibly not a part of the Ten Commandments, those laws. And then, you know, just think of how certain individuals were regarding during the time of Albert Einstein, you know. And, well, I mean, there's Edison, or Thomas Edison, and, you know, Newton, and Socrates, and Plato, and Galileo, and, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, you know, a few individuals over the, you know, time frame. I mean, there's obviously Tesla, so there is that, but, you know, Edison. And so there's that, there are those, but yeah, so, you know, to the same standards by each and every individual who has ever had any hypothetical, needless involvement in regards of certain needless problems, you know, those clarifications, that karmic aspect that you should take in consideration. So while I have been lenient in regards of my updates to my website on my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on www.susanmeeling.com, that's my viewpoint. However, your own standards in this hypothetical, you programmed yourselves as far as that's concerned. So when it comes to my clarifications and verifications, if as to that TED Talk regarding April of 2022, if as to what E equals MC squared was bringing up in those particular references regarding AI and those coding factors, because you would have done that yourself in regards to whatever text messages, cell phone or landline phone calls, social media, messages, emails. I've already gone over this. So whatever standards you yourself set in the hypotheticals of regarding me, especially in reference to, you know, certain individuals I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, from, you know, the 1980s through 2013 for hypothetical references before I published my books, you might want to take that in consideration for yourselves, because then would that be a hypothetical saving grace regarding my work, regarding my updates to that merger hypothetical? Because I'm about life. And I don't know what technological pieces are out there. After having listened to some stuff regarding the official Joe Rogan Experience YouTube channel with certain individuals in those particular references. So my work is my work, and my business stuff is my business stuff, and my finances should be for my choice of my usage for the proof of those clarifications and verifications, because I am only in control of my stuff. But you people in the hypotheticals of, you know what you have programmed into your social media stuff, so you can take those percentages of what your standards have been, and you can think about what your best interests would be, you know, if you actually appreciate life. I wouldn't know what you would have to be worried about regarding those standards. Because then there's the what if factor in regards of the year of 2018 to the 6th of June in 2022. So that would be 3.5, 4 years, if I remember correctly. So if you go by that 3.5, 4 year time frame and the prior stuff, maybe there's some things some people should take in consideration as far as their backgrounds and those clarifications and respect and etiquette standards. Because I brought up a few things during my updates regarding ending every type of stolen valor immediately. Now, integrity matters, how truth matters, because how would you be capable to progress forward, especially in regards of the development of the U.S. Space Force, after how many companies that have airplanes have gotten into working into space research in conjunction to NASA, satellites that have been orbiting the Earth, SpaceX, Blue Origin, stuff like that? You might want to think about that. You know, I mean, how many videos and reports would the Navy and or Marine Corps and or Coast Guard have in regards of stuff like the Tic Tac? What year was that actually recorded? Then there's, what was it, Area 151 for another reference. Let's see, how long was that around before it was ever learned of in the general public sector? Then there's DARPA as to those additional references, and a few other ironies of oddities read about now. And so yeah, that's a really big irony. So back in the day, in the year of 1998 or 1999, I had been with some females, and against my recommendations, some females had wanted to play the Ouija board. And I had warned them, so I went to protect who I could and did an energetic situation, and this spider had walked around the candle repeatedly in a circular pattern around the candle for several minutes. There were some situations that had occurred, and so there's just an irony at this point in time regarding a few other factors, additionally to another year in 2004 where some females didn't want to heed my warnings when they should have. So, you know, however you do that in regards of my Medal of Honor art project and stuff like that, and honesty, and yeah, it just so happens to be an irony in reference to bringing up the merger factors. And so, and that Joe Rogan Experience official YouTube channel regarding some of the discussions and stuff like that. So that'd be something some people might want to take in consideration regarding those standards that I was held to, and or what have you. So, you know, it depends on, you know, I mean, you know, I believe in karma. I don't know how many other people do. And so, you know, just the mergers. As far as that purging of information regarding those hypotheticals, you know, and those factors might be something some people might want to think about. And truth. So I've done what I could to actually clarify and verify to the best of my capabilities. I don't know what other people might want to think about in those references as to the importance of, in conjunction to my scuba diving, which then you also have to take in consideration, I don't vicariously live through my son and my daughter. Unlike some of the stuff I dealt with, such as in Illinois, and I didn't want to be a cheerleader. I didn't want to be in a beauty pageant. That's not the type of person I've ever been. And so, you know, those particular situations, so whatever percentage, you know, would it be considered as even with the 85%? Would that be considered more forgiving compared to the standards, hypothetically, that I've been held to? And that each individual in those particular references as to whatever they programmed regarding their own social media, their own emails, cell phone calls, text messages, landlines. If you sent anything in the mail that would have been scanned in those references, I don't know. So I acknowledge that I can make mistakes. I don't believe I'm perfect. I know that I'm perfectly imperfect because of words. You know, I acknowledge the after effects of my head injury and stuff, and that I can make mistakes. And I do the best that I can to actually correctly, in those 10 commandment ways, fix and repair situations. So why would people, in reference to the hypotheticals as to participation trophies in regards of certain things such as my scuba diving, as to my work, and such comparisons to a few other factors, and the proper credit and correct recognition depending on, you know, so like I give the example as to the inspiration portions regarding in those aspects of, and so in the truth as well, which is kind of important. And so, you know, stuff for people to take into consideration. Because, you know, would it be more forgiving than what I've dealt with? And if it is, and the knowledge of, and what is the accomplishments, whether small or large, from the time frame of 2018 through now in the 26th of April 2022. And what celebratory aspects in comparison. You know, when you treat people to participation trophy aspects, and there is the known need to end all types of stolen valor, what would that be? Because what would that lead to regarding people who actually genuinely make heartfelt and actual attempts? Because sure, I have that internal drive, but that's me. In the reference of the rest of the general public, what does that show in those references of inspiration? So while some people could be inspired here and there, what level of effort are they willing to put into it in comparison? What is the production rate from 2018 to now in 2022? as far as what each individual human being has put forward. What importance would that be in those references to take in consideration, not just in regards of my survival after waking up from my coma after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000? I mean, to be honest, on top of, this is just a proof in regards of my childhood and teenage years regarding birthdays or second and third place in sparring and form in the international circuit, regarding, the Taekwondo when I was in 8th grade, or even regarding Governor Christine Todd Whitman and earning that, it's just the proof on that regarding having survived that head injury and my coma, subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. I mean, they did move to the state of Texas in the year 2003. When did they ever actually have a birthday party for me, with me there? The answer is 0, just the same as before my head injury, regarding actualities of. So what does that show? As far as, so while sure, I still do stuff, but that's not for those people at all. But what does that show now with the social media aspects? Because there are those who still make attempts, but when you get to that continuous aspect from the 1980s to now in 2022, what does that show? What is inspirational for people to actually genuinely make actual attempts with that level of? So, okay, from 2018 through now, in 2022. I completed and dropped off, is it something like 50 or so of my Medal of Honor Art Project pieces in total, somewhere around there, maybe 60. There's, something like 25 or 35 Dr. Mary Edwards Walker collection pieces as far as my work. The aspects of my journal blog, updated aspects. I mean, I only have the ones that I completed as far as pictures on my website. Anything else doesn't count, obviously, because that is a energetic consent requirement. So, and there's only certain ways those get done. So despite how many I had completed as far as the pieces of paper, the actual completed portions. Then however many journal blogs on my website, www.susanmealing.com. The starting of my official YouTube channel and my official YouTube videos. And then, the rallies that I've attended, having gone and proven as far as without any hesitation in reference to what would be for people on land above sea level, because there are people who know and understand and comprehend as far as water and distortion as far as viewpoints, as well as the issues in reference to the Bermuda Triangle of the ocean, and those particular factors as to me being the size I am compared to even just going to the keel of the USNS Vandenberg, or General Hoyt S. Vandenberg. So, all that, having driven as many miles and those references, the amount of reaching out as far as actualities of, And those references of clarifications, okay, yeah, I've done that, but that's, so the only times of having spoken with some people in person, face-to-face in person, in the aspects of or during the year of 2020 regarding the rallies, not that I haven't since then, but that I've written about, or however you put that, in those regards of, as to my work. So, you know, on top of every other aspect, and there are ways to simply just use to contact form regarding etiquette and respect, the obvious aspects which you can, you know, be respectful as far as if you have a question or whatever, as far as that's concerned, as far as those factors. I don't know. I don't know how many, I don't know. I've reached out to so many over the decades at this point. You know, if certain things are explained that work best for me in comparison, why would it not make sense to me in reference to having put that out there, and then in the comparative factors of as to what I've dealt with. So all those times I've reached out and stuff like that. So yeah, no, that's just pointing that out there in those particular references, because why would that be important to take in consideration? So it is as it is, you know, so etiquette and respect. So, but yeah, sure, there's the Georgia Guidestone, whatever, as far as that's concerned. I guess it depends on your opinion of yourselves. I guess that would be that aspect in those considerations. So, hypothetically, because of, I guess that's the way to view it in comparison regarding direct sent to letters, messages, and phone calls. Some even having been hand dropped off. So you know, I guess that is as it is. So depends on your opinion as far as how that's viewed. So, you know, I guess, you know, if you take the Georgia Guidestone, what have yous, you know, is as it is. Personal opinions of yourselves and those factors, because of what I consider as etiquette and respect. And so, whatever. So I'm gonna end my official YouTube channel video. Make sure to like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. Go look around. Etiquette and respect regarding comments, or as well as, you know, if in regards of using my to contact form.